All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking into something super intriguing, the secrets to a long and happy life.
Ooh, always a good topic, right?
Absolutely. And get this, it all ties back to this Japanese concept called Ikigai. Have you heard about this?
I have, yeah. It's all about having this joy from always being busy.
Right, always having something to look forward to. And apparently it might just be the secret sauce to why people in Okinawa, Japan live such long, healthy lives.
Makes sense, yeah. I know they're known for their longevity.
So, for this deep dive, we've got a couple of really interesting sources.
Lay it on me.
So first up, we've got Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles.
Sounds promising. What's the second one?
This is where it gets a little mysterious.
Mhm.
It's this PDF document, similarly titled Zero, and get this, it has an unfinished prologue.
Unfinished. Okay, now I'm really curious. What does it say?
Well, we'll get to that later. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but first, let's head over to Okinawa and dive into their Ikigai.
Sounds good to me. What did you find out about how they live?
Well, the authors of the book went to this village in Okinawa called Ogimi. They call it the Village of Longevity. And what they found there is fascinating.
I'm all ears. What's so special about it?
It's not like everyone's just sitting around all day meditating, you know?
Right, right.
These centenarians, they're active, they're engaged, they've got this really strong sense of purpose.
They have this spark, huh?
Yeah,
That zest for life.
exactly. And speaking of purpose, they've got these amazing gardens. The book talks about how they're out there tending to their vegetables every day.
That's a perfect example of Ikigai in action right there.
Right.
It's not just some philosophy in a book. It's about finding that joy in what you're doing every day.
Exactly. You feel that sense of purpose.
And that purpose doesn't have to be, saving the world. It could
Yeah.
be something as simple as growing delicious food for yourself and your community.
It's the simple things, right? Really resonating with me. But here's what I'm wondering. How do they actually find their ikigai? Is it something you're just born with?
That's a really good question. I'm curious about that too.
Or can you, like, actively discover it?
Right. Is it nature or nurture?
Right.
Well, that's where the book gets really interesting because it connects Ikigai with this thing called logotherapy.
Logotherapy. Okay, now I'm a little lost.
It's a school of psychology all about finding meaning in life.
Okay. But how can psychology help you find your reason for being, you know?
Well, think of it this way. Logotherapy, it was developed by Viktor Frankl. He emphasized that meaning, you don't create it, you discover it.
Huh.
It's about looking beyond yourself, finding something bigger than yourself to contribute to, even when you're going through tough times.
That makes a lot of sense, especially considering Frankel's own experiences, right?
Yeah.
Surviving Auschwitz, that must have given him a unique perspective on the human will to find meaning, even in those darkest moments.
It must have. And, his book, Man's Search for Meaning, really highlights that whole concept.
Absolutely. It's a powerful read.
And, Frankl, he believed we all have this drive to find meaning. And he even developed these specific techniques to help people tap into it.
Yeah.
One of the questions he would ask his patients, he would say, why don't you commit suicide?
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Right.
But I guess in a way it forces you to think about, what keeps you going.
What makes life worth living, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's where the connection to Ikigai becomes super clear, because both logotherapy and Ikigai, they emphasize that meaning isn't static. It's not like you find it and it's just done.
Right, it's got to evolve.
Exactly. It evolves throughout your life. It's not a destination, it's a journey. Right?
It's like a dance, right? A constant exploration and rediscovering of your purpose as you grow and change as a person.
That's a beautiful way to put it, a dance.
I like it. I like it.
I like it too. So now, before we get, too deep into the philosophy side of things, let's change gears for a bit.
Okay, sounds good. What are we shifting to?
The book also explores this concept of flow. And it's all about being completely absorbed in an activity,
Oh, yeah. I've totally experienced that.
Have you? Yeah.
Like when you're so focused on something that you completely lose track of time. That's what we're talking about, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And, the author who really dove into this concept, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he spent years researching what causes flow states, what contributes to them.
So is there like a secret formula to achieve flow? Can I just like force myself into it?
Well, not exactly. There's no magic button, unfortunately.
Darn.
But you know what? Csikszentmihalyi, he found that there are a few key ingredients.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, you need a clear objective, like a specific goal that you're working towards.
All right, that makes sense.
Second, the activity needs to have the right level of challenge. Not too easy, not too hard.
Yeah, that sweet spot.
The sweet spot, exactly. And finally, you need a distraction-free environment.
Oh, that last one's tough these days.
I know, right?
With our phones, emails, and all the notifications constantly vying for our attention.
It really is a challenge.
Staying focused feels like an Olympic sport.
It does.
Yeah.
But don't worry, the book offers some helpful techniques to, like, minimize those distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and create an environment that's more conducive to flow. They mention things like the Pomodoro technique,
The Pomodoro technique. Yeah, I've heard of that.
where you break down your work into, these focused intervals.
Yeah, I need to try that.
Right.
Okay, I'm liking this. But what I'm really curious about is how this all connects back to Ikigai and the Okinawans.
Oh, that's where it gets really fascinating, because the Okinawan lifestyle, it's full of activities that naturally lead to those flow states.
Interesting.
Remember those gardens we talked about?
Yeah, those sounded so peaceful.
Exactly. And, gardening, with its clear objectives and the challenges and that connection to nature, that can be like a perfect activity for achieving flow.
That makes sense. I can see myself getting lost in that.
And then that sense of flow, that absorption in a meaningful activity, that contributes to their overall well-being and longevity.
So it's not just about living longer, it's about living a life full of purpose and joy.
You got it. And Ikigai seems to be the key that unlocks both.
I'm really loving this idea.
Me too. It's fascinating. So now, are you ready to dive into some specific examples
Absolutely, let's hear it.
of how the Okinawans cultivate flow and Ikigai in their day-to-day lives?
Yes, lay it on me.
All right. Well, for starters, they have this concept called moai, which are basically social support groups.
Moai. Okay, what are those like?
Think of them as like built-in networks of friends and neighbors who always have your back.
Like a chosen family.
Exactly. And it goes beyond emotional support even. They even help each other out financially.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. And the book even shares this really cool example of a moai in Ogimi,
Ooh, tell me more.
where members, they actually contribute a small amount of money each month. And they use that fund for things like social gatherings, celebrations, and even to help out members who are going through tough times.
It's like this mini safety net woven into their community.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
And these moai, they're not just about that practical support. They also provide a space for, shared experiences, laughter, connection.
All the good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah. Which all contributes to well-being, right?
Makes a lot of sense. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Strong community ties, sense of purpose, activities that foster flow. It's like a recipe for a long and happy life. Straight from the Okinawan playbook.
You're catching on quick. Ready for another key ingredient in their recipe for longevity?
Hit me with it. I'm all ears.
It's their diet. The Okinawans are well known for their incredibly healthy eating habits.
Yeah, their diet's always a hot topic. What's their secret?
Well, their diet's packed with veggies, especially sweet potatoes, along with things like tofu, fish, and seaweed.
It's all about whole, unprocessed foods, right? Lots of colorful vegetables. No wonder they're so healthy. But do they have, any specific rules they follow?
One of the most interesting parts of their diet is this principle called hara hachibu, which basically means eating until you're 80% full.
Hold on, eating until you're 80% full. How do you even measure that?
I know, right? But it's all about tuning into your body's signals
Okay.
and stopping before you feel
Yeah.
completely stuffed.
So you're not, uncomfortably full.
No, not at all. It takes practice, for sure, but it's a mindful way to eat that helps prevent overeating, and it's really good for digestion.
That's a really cool idea. It's like a built-in portion control system. I'm definitely guilty of overeating sometimes. Maybe I need to try that harahachibu.
I think we all could benefit from it.
Right.
It aligns with the whole Okinawan philosophy of moderation and balance.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that balance is a key theme here.
It really is.
The balance in their diet, balance in their lifestyle, balance between activity and rest.
Exactly. And this balance extends even to their approach to exercise.
Okay, spill the beans. What's their secret to staying active and healthy well into their hundreds? Are we talking marathon running or intense gym workouts?
Not quite. They're all about incorporating gentle movement into their daily lives rather than doing those really strenuous workouts.
So it's less about hitting the gym and more about staying active throughout the day.
That's it. They walk a lot. They tend to their gardens. They even have this popular morning exercise routine called Radio Taiso.
Radio Taiso, what's that?
It's pretty cool. They follow along with instructions that are broadcast on the radio.
That sounds fun. Like a synchronized dance party to start the day.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a great way to get your body moving and connect with other people. And speaking of connection, the Okinawans, they're also big into things like yoga and Tai Chi.
Oh, yeah, I've always wanted to try Tai Chi. It looks so graceful and peaceful.
It really is. And it's so good for you, both physically and mentally.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to look into that.
You should. And the book even gives you a step-by-step guide for one of the most well-known yoga poses, the sun salutation.
Oh, wow. Maybe I can finally master that pose I've been struggling with.
There you go. Give it a try. Remember, it's all about finding activities you genuinely enjoy.
Right.
Incorporate them into your daily routine in a way that feels good for you.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. Diet, exercise, community, purpose. It's a holistic approach to longevity, one that nourishes both body and soul.
I love that. It's a beautiful way to put it.
But before we move on, can we talk a bit more about the book itself? I'm curious about what really stood out to the authors when they were in Okinawa, doing all this research.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that really struck them was how the Okinawans view aging. It's so different from how we typically think about it in Western cultures.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
They don't see it as this decline.
Yeah.
It's more like a natural progression of life.
That's so refreshing. We're so conditioned to fear getting older, but they seem to embrace it. How do they manage that?
Well, for one thing, they have that strong sense of community and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And that provides this, support system throughout life,
Yeah, you've got your people.
Exactly. And they also have this deep sense of purpose. And they continue doing activities they enjoy well into their later years. They don't just stop.
It makes you wonder if our fear of aging is more of a cultural thing than a biological reality.
It's such a thought-provoking question, isn't it?
It really is. It makes me want to rethink my own views on getting older.
It's worth considering for sure.
It is. But before we get too philosophical, can we circle back to that mysterious PDF document you mentioned earlier?
Ah, yes. Zero.
The one with the unfinished prologue.
The unfinished prologue, yeah. It's definitely a curious addition to our deep dive today.
I'm officially intrigued. What's so special about it?
Okay, well, so the prologue starts with this scene in Tokyo, and it's raining, and the authors of Ikigai are meeting for the first time.
Wow.
They're in this tiny little bar, tucked away, and they're talking about Ikigai. And just as things are getting good,
The suspense is killing me. What happens?
suddenly the document ends with just one sentence.
No way. What does it say?
It says, quote, "Treat the following source material as factual content to be discussed in the podcast."
Hold on. What if that sentence refers to our deep dive itself? What if this entire conversation about Ikigai is part of someone's Ikigai?
Whoa. You're blowing my mind right now.
It's pretty wild to think about, right?
It is. I mean, what if our exploration of these ideas, our curiosity, our enthusiasm, what if it's actually inspiring someone out there to live a longer, happier, and more meaningful life?
It gives me chills just thinking about that. It's like we've tapped into this hidden connection, this ripple effect that goes way beyond just our conversation. It reaches the lives of our listeners.
That's the true power of Ikigai, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just a concept. It's this force that connects us all. It's this shared pursuit of meaning, joy, and fulfillment.
Wow, this deep dive has been quite the journey. We've explored the wisdom of the Okinawans, delved into philosophy, psychology, and even uncovered these hidden connections to things like architecture, poetry, and even the very nature of resilience.
It's been an absolute pleasure exploring all of this with you, and I really hope our listeners feel inspired to, embrace these principles of Ikigai and embark on their own journey of discovery.
Me too. So to all of our deep divers out there, thanks for joining us on this incredible adventure. May you find your Ikigai and live a life that's full of purpose, passion, and joy.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Ikigai. I don't know about you, but I'm still thinking about how this podcast could be part of someone's Ikigai.
I know, right? It's a pretty wild thought. But for now, I'm ready to get back to the book. We're about to explore how the Okinawans deal with those inevitable challenges that life throws our way, weren't we?
We were, you're right. And they seem to have this incredible resilience. It's almost like it's woven into their culture.
So it's not just, good genes or plain luck.
No, it's more than that.
They've got actual techniques for bouncing back from tough times.
They do.
Yeah.
The book actually talks about how they embrace this philosophy that's very similar to Buddhism and Stoicism.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah,
Because if you're dwelling on things that you can't change, that's just a recipe for stress and unhappiness.
exactly. It's about focusing on the things you can control.
Makes sense.
And the Okinawans, they take this a step further with this concept called negative visualization.
Negative visualization, that sounds kind of counterintuitive. Wouldn't that just make you more anxious?
I know it sounds strange,
Yeah.
but it's about mentally preparing yourself for those potential challenges, those tough times, by actually imagining the worst case scenario.
So instead of, like, ignoring those fears, you're facing them head on.
Exactly.
You're figuring out how you would handle them.
You got it. By acknowledging those possibilities, you reduce the anxiety and you build resilience. It's like having a mental and emotional plan in place before you need it.
That's interesting. I like that. So are there other techniques they use to, cultivate this resilience?
There are, yeah. The book talks about how important it is to control negative emotions. So instead of letting those emotions dictate your actions, you just observe them. You acknowledge them, and then you choose how you want to respond.
That sounds like something that takes a lot of practice.
It does, but it would be so powerful if you could master that skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else the book mentions for building that inner strength?
They talk a lot about mindfulness, which we've talked about a bit already in relation to flow.
Right, right.
It's about being present in the moment, observing your thoughts and emotions without any judgment.
It feels like mindfulness is a recurring theme for us in this deep dive.
It is.
It's like a master key that unlocks so many aspects of a fulfilling life, like flow, resilience, and ultimately, Ikigai.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And this emphasis on presence and acceptance, it also ties into these two beautiful Japanese concepts, wabi-sabi and ichigo-ichie.
Okay, now those are new ones for me.
Right.
Break those down for me.
Okay, so wabi-sabi, it's about finding beauty in imperfection.
Okay.
It's about appreciating the cracks and the crevices, the asymmetry, the transience of life. It's not about striving for this unattainable perfection.
I love that. It's so different from how we usually think about things, in the West, with this obsession with flawlessness.
It is.
I love that the Okinawans embrace that perfectly imperfect nature of life.
Right.
That's freeing.
It is. And then ichigo-ichie, that translates to this moment exists only now and won't come again.
Whoa.
Right. It's basically saying, cherish each experience, be fully present, appreciate that fleeting beauty of life.
It's like they're saying, savor this moment because it's unique and precious and it's never going to happen again exactly like this.
Exactly. And both of these concepts, they're reflected in traditional Japanese architecture too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The book actually highlights this one place, the Grand Shrine of Eyes. It's a perfect example.
Okay, what's so special about it?
Well, it's been rebuilt every 20 years for centuries.
Every 20 years. Wow. What's the reasoning behind that?
It's about embracing impermanence, acknowledging that nothing lasts forever and valuing that process of renewal and rebirth.
It's like a powerful metaphor for life itself.
Isn't it?
It's about letting go of that need to cling to things and instead embracing change and that cyclical nature.
Beautifully said. And this idea of embracing change, even benefiting from challenges, that leads us to our final concept, anti-fragility.
Anti-fragility. Okay, I'm not going to lie, that sounds kind of intense. What does that even mean?
Okay, so think about it like this. Fragile things break under pressure, right?
Right.
Resilient things, those withstand pressure, but anti-fragile things, they actually grow stronger from pressure.
Okay, so instead of just surviving challenges, you're using them to, level up.
Precisely. The book gives the example of, the mythical Hydra, the one that grew 2 heads for every one that was cut off.
Right. Right.
Talk about turning a setback into an advantage.
I like that visual a lot. But how do we do that? How do we cultivate this anti-fragility in our own lives? Is that something that you can actually learn?
You can, absolutely. The book, it outlines these 3 key steps: creating redundancies, taking calculated risks, and eliminating sources of fragility.
Okay, I need this broken down a bit. What do you mean by creating redundancies?
So it's basically don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, makes sense.
Think about having multiple streams of income, having a diverse network of friends, interests, just having backup plans in place.
So it's like building a safety net for yourself. So if one thing falls through, you've got other options.
Exactly. And the second step, taking those calculated risks, that's about finding that sweet spot between playing it safe and being reckless. You're protecting those core assets, but you're still leaving that room for growth and exploration.
Right. You don't want to be so scared of risk that you miss out on opportunities, but you also don't want to be constantly putting yourself in those really dangerous situations.
Right, it's about balance.
Yeah.
And then the final step, eliminating things that make you fragile, that's like a spring cleaning for your life.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Out with the old.
Exactly. It's about figuring out, the people, the habits, the things that drain your energy and make you vulnerable, and then you choose to let them go.
It's about setting boundaries.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. So that sounds like a really powerful practice
It is.
for creating a life that's not just resilient, but truly anti-fragile, like you said. But how does all of this tie back to Ikigai?
Well, when you're living in alignment with your Ikigai, you're naturally more resilient, more adaptable, because you have that strong sense of purpose, that direction.
It's like an anchor.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Challenges become opportunities for growth rather than just threats to your well-being.
So Ikigai is like the fuel for anti-fragility. It gives you that inner drive to bounce back stronger after you've been through something tough.
Exactly. And the book actually highlights this real-world example of this in the aftermath of that 2011 tsunami that hit the Chuchoku region of Japan.
Oh, wow. That was such a tragic event.
It was, yeah.
How does anti-fragility play into a situation like that?
Well, the book compares the fates of different towns that were along the coast. And some of them, despite all the damage they suffered, they were able to rebuild and recover.
Showing that resilience.
Exactly. And that really speaks to the importance of community, resources, having that collective will to
Yeah,
rebuild.
we can do this. We're going to get through this together.
Exactly. But then there were these other towns that were basically just left as ghost towns. They couldn't recover. And then you have the Fukushima nuclear power plant. That's like a stark example of fragility.
Oh, yeah. A system that was just totally overwhelmed by that catastrophe and is still struggling to recover all these years later.
Right. It shows how even the most advanced technology can be fragile if it's not designed in a way that allows it to adapt.
That's true. It makes you think.
It does. But there were also some positive examples. Like the book talks about the Japanese construction industry and how that need to rebuild, it actually created this huge demand for their services.
So they benefited from the disaster.
In a way, yeah. It's a complex example,
Yeah.
but it really highlights that concept of anti-fragility and how some systems are actually designed to thrive in chaos.
While others just fall apart.
Exactly.
It makes you think about how we can design our own lives and systems, to be more adaptable, more anti-fragile, to embrace change and uncertainty, to see those things as opportunities to grow.
Exactly. Exactly. And, that brings us to this really interesting connection the book makes between Ikigai and the world of haiku poetry.
Haiku poetry, I'm not sure I see the connection.
I know, it's a little subtle, but it's really profound. Haiku, with its emphasis on brevity and capturing that essence of the present moment, it really echoes the spirit of Ikigai. They're both about finding beauty and meaning in the everyday, in those fleeting moments that make up our lives.
I can see it now. Haiku is like a snapshot of a moment, and Ikigai is about finding your purpose and joy within those moments.
Exactly. And the book introduces us to this contemporary haiku poet named Mitsuo Aida.
Mitsuo Aida, okay.
His work beautifully embodies these principles.
What does Aida say about Ikigai?
Well, a lot of his haikus reflect on themes of presence, time, and impermanence. One of them translates to, in the here and now, the only thing in my life is your life.
Wow, that's beautiful. It speaks to that interconnectedness of life, the importance of those relationships, being present with the people we care about.
Exactly. And another one simply says, here now.
It's so simple yet so powerful.
Isn't it? A powerful reminder to let go of those distractions, be fully present, appreciate the fleeting nature of existence.
Yeah, that's a really important message, especially in this world we live in where everyone's constantly competing for our attention.
It really is. And Aida also has this haiku that says, happiness is always determined by your heart. Which really speaks to the essence of Ikigai, right?
It does. True happiness comes from within, aligning yourself with your passions, with what brings you meaning.
Exactly. And that reminds us that our Ikigai is like this inner compass. It guides us toward a life that's full of meaning and fulfillment.
What other gems of wisdom does Aida offer?
Well, he also has one that encourages us to keep going, even when we're faced with challenges, not to stray from our path. It says, keep going, don't change your path.
That's a powerful message of resilience and determination. It's about trusting your instincts, being true to yourself, and embracing the journey, even when it gets tough.
It is. And that feels like the perfect note to end on, wouldn't you say?
I think so. But before we wrap up part 2, I gotta ask about the Okinawan approach to food.
Yeah,
Everyone talks about how healthy their diet is.
they do.
What's the secret?
Well, luckily for us, the book goes into quite a bit of detail about what they call the Ikigai diet. And it's not about those restrictive rules. It's more like a way of eating that aligns with their philosophy of balance and moderation.
I'm all ears. Tell me more about it.
Okay, so one of the things that really struck me was the sheer variety of foods they eat. The book mentions that centenarians in Okinawa, they eat an average of 18 different foods each day.
18.
Yeah, and over 200 different foods regularly.
Wow, that puts my weekly meal rotation to shame.
Right. I know. What kind of foods are they eating, you ask?
Please.
Well, their diet is very heavily plant-based, with lots of vegetables like sweet potatoes, seaweed, leafy greens. They also eat a lot of tofu, fish, fermented foods like miso.
Sounds delicious and super healthy.
It is, and colorful.
But I'm curious, do they ever indulge in, like, sweets or treats?
Of course, they're not robots.
Right.
They enjoy treats in moderation, but they often choose traditional sweets that are made with natural ingredients, like brown sugar and fruit. It's about balance, listening to your body.
It sounds like their approach to food is just like their approach to life, mindful, balanced, and focusing on enjoyment rather than deprivation.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not about strict rules or counting calories. It's about savoring a variety of delicious foods that nourish both body and soul.
You're making me want to revamp my whole way of eating. But before I get lost in a daydream of Okinawan feasts, I think we should probably wrap up part 2.
Agreed. We have covered so much ground today, from their approach to resilience, embracing imperfection, the power of haiku poetry, and just a glimpse into their delicious and diverse diet.
My head is buzzing with so many new ideas and inspiration. I can't wait to dive into the final part of our deep dive and see what other secrets the Okinawans have to share.
Stay tuned, deep divers. We'll be back soon to explore even more fascinating insights into the world of Ikigai.
Welcome back, deep divers. I'm still blown away by how much we've learned from the Okinawans. Their approach to life is so inspiring.
It really is. You know, they figured out a way to not just live longer, but to live those years with a purpose, with joy, with this deep sense of connection to themselves and their community. It's really remarkable.
And we still have more to uncover. Last time we were talking about the Ikigai diet.
Right. Which sounds less like a diet and more like, a celebration of food.
I know, but there's one more aspect of their eating habits that I wanted to touch on. The book mentions that the Okinawans are big fans of green tea.
Ah, yes. Green tea. It's practically synonymous with Japanese culture, isn't it?
It is. What's so special about it?
Well, it's packed with antioxidants, which we all know are great for protecting your cells from damage.
Yeah.
And there's even some research suggesting that green tea might actually contribute to longevity.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm gonna stock up on green tea right after this. But I'm also curious about something. We've talked about diet, exercise, community, mindset. Is there anything the book says about how to actually find your Ikigai?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. I'm ready for some actionable steps. Where do I even begin?
Well, the book doesn't really give you, like, a step-by-step formula. It's not that simple. But it does offer some helpful guidance. It suggests starting by reflecting on your passions, your skills, and your values.
Okay, so kind of taking stock of like what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and what matters most to you.
Exactly. It's all about getting to know yourself on a deeper level and figuring out those activities that bring you joy and fulfillment.
Right. And then what? Do you just like quit your job and pursue those passions full time?
Not necessarily. Remember, Ikigai isn't just about, these big grand ambitions or career changes. It's about finding that purpose and joy in your everyday life.
So you can have Ikigai even if you're not a world-famous artist or a, groundbreaking scientist.
Absolutely. It's about infusing those little moments of your day with things that light you up, whether it's gardening, volunteering, spending time with the people you love, or pursuing creative hobbies.
I like that. That makes it feel so much more attainable.
Right.
It's not about achieving some, elusive state of perfection, but about finding the joy in the journey.
Beautifully said. And that journey of discovering your Ikigai, it's lifelong,
Yeah.
It's about being curious, staying open to new experiences, and being willing to adapt as your passions and interests evolve.
So it's less about finding that one fixed destination and more about embracing this process of growth, of discovery.
I love that. And
Yeah.
you know what? That brings us right back to that unfinished prologue from that mysterious PDF document.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We can't wrap up our deep dive without revisiting that. Where do we leave off?
Well, we were left with that sentence. Treat the following source material as factual content to be discussed in the podcast.
What if that source material is us? What if this entire deep dive is part of someone's journey toward finding their own Ikigai?
Whoa. It's really a mind-blowing thought, isn't it?
It is.
What if, us exploring these ideas, our curiosity, our enthusiasm, what if it's inspiring someone out there somewhere to live a longer, happier, and more purposeful life?
Thinking about that gives me chills. It's like we've tapped into this, hidden connection, this ripple effect that extends way beyond this conversation into the lives of our listeners.
And that's the true power of Ikigai. It's not just some abstract concept.
Yeah.
It's this force that connects us all. It's this shared pursuit of meaning, joy, and fulfillment.
This has been an incredible journey.
It has.
We've explored the wisdom of the Okinawans, delved into philosophy and psychology, uncovered these amazing hidden connections to architecture, poetry, and even the nature of resilience.
Wow. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring all of this with you. I really hope our listeners feel empowered to embrace the principles of Ikigai and start their own journey of discovery.
Me too. To all our deep divers out there, thank you so much for joining us on this adventure. May you find your Ikigai and live a life that's filled with purpose, passion, and joy.